I brought up the fact that I think it's really crazy how aggressive people are about things that don't even impact their lives, period.
Mhm.
I was talking about how people are aggressive like on social media and they have really strong opinions about whatever the heck, right?
Mhm.
But when it comes to their own lives, they're not aggressive about their own goals, their own job, how they parent, how they show up in the world as just a person in general,
Mhm.
or their fitness goals or whatever. They're not aggressive about the things that can actually move the needle in their life and actually change their life for the better. They're more focused on or more aggressive about things that don't impact them at all. And it just blows my mind because, we interact on social media a lot more. So I study people on social media at this point, and it blows my mind at the state of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when it's so easy for people to be so wrapped up in the world outside of them more so than they are in the world inside of them, the one that they're actually living.
Yeah.
But we both know that people use the world online as an escape to get away from the things that they can actually control and impact. And it's unfortunate though, but I mean, the way that the world is now for a lot of people, they more so live in that reality more heavily than they do, again, in their own actual ones. And it's crazy because nowadays you can see how people's thoughts, their opinions, their beliefs, and so many different other things all pretty much stem from the things that they consume. And I think people have become more and more unaware of how deeply the things that they consume impact how they think, how they feel, and in a lot of ways, who they become. It's unfortunate. I mean, and it's not always unfortunate because there is a positive. There are things out there, even in what we try to produce and what we try to share, we try our best to give out things that are of value, things that we've learned, to be that positive voice and to be able to give, sound perspectives and different things like that. And it's just realizing that if that's going to be, if the opposition right now is knowing that there is so much harmful perspectives and content and things out there today that do present problems, understanding that on the equal opposite side, there's also a lot of good.
Yeah.
And realizing that now, even as people do start to shape their own realities and become so consumed in the things that they see out there, the least we can do from our perspective and what our mission is to try to be a positive voice when people come across us and the things that we share, and realizing that maybe something that we put out and what we share can be the thing that kind of tilts the needle in a positive direction for somebody else that consumes what we share.
Yeah, I think something we were talking about in the car is feeling like obligated to do this. Like we feel irresponsible if we don't say things.
Yeah.
Especially when we know how positive like marriage has been in our life, how positive like our family unit has been, especially since we've felt for a long time called to talk about our life experience, and just share it with the world. Like it would feel irresponsible for us to not do what we know we should be doing in the world, period.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely agree with you.
The crazy part in all of that is the fact that knowing that regardless of what the current state of the world is, and how people learn, how people interact, how people consume and all of this different stuff, is realizing that even though there may be an extreme on the negative side, there also has to be a positive voice to be able to stand up and be able to share those uplifting, inspirational, and positive and hopefully impactful messages as well. And with, marriage and relationships and personal growth being high values of ours, knowing that we're just as responsible for putting out the good things in our attempt to more so sway people to be able to like have a positive reaction towards the good things, even more so than the negative. Because if the voices and the sound of negativity is going to be so loud, all we can do is try to combat that with the positive voices and the things that we want to share that actually uplift and inspire people. So that way, hopefully at one point in time, you know, in maybe in our generation, maybe not, who knows, that becomes the dominant voice.
Yeah.
Because there's no benefit from us being quiet about it. Because if the sounds of negativity and all of that other crap become the dominant voice, then we'll all end up being the collateral damage of what that is, because groupthink is real. Groupthink is a real deal when it comes to how people are impacted mentally and on a subconscious level. And so if there's no opposition to go against that and to get people to think, you know, for themselves and to see the beauty of love and meaningful relationships and being a good person, maintaining your morality and having standards and values, if there's no people to be able to uplift that, then the negative and the defeating and doubtful messages or whatever, like, they become the dominating thought. And it's like you said, it's irresponsible for us to have something to say and to want to be able to share that and to not do it, knowing that the more we don't do it, the louder those other voices get.
Right.
So, like you said, man, it's basically an obligation at this point for us to continue to grow and get better, get more comfortable sharing our messages and putting it out more, especially when we know that there truly is an enemy today.
Yeah, and while we were sitting in the car having this conversation, we both was looking at each other like, damn, we really need to produce more. Like, damn, we really need to make more clips. Like, you know, because it's so much negative stuff on social media, and I see people share stuff all the time. But I think what's crazy about that, it's not even about things being like negative. It's just certain stuff is just unproductive.
That's real.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because obviously there's going to be positive and negative things in any and everything, because this is the human experience. It's the fact that it's unproductive. What is pointing out so much negative stuff about relationships doing for you? You know what I'm saying? So I think that's what really blows my mind, because I think I know we share challenges in our relationship, things that may have been negative, but we also talk about how we work through things.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I understand things being like people do positive and negative messages, but it's like, what is productive and what's not productive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that comes back to perspective too, because regardless of the nature of the conversation, like, shoot, even now, really just thinking about it, the only thing that makes it positive or negative is the person sitting on the other side and how they perceive it.
Absolutely.
Because for any potential negative, there has to be a positive. Like, it has to be. And it's just, what side are you focusing on? And like you said, how can you be able to take whatever that perspective is and frame it in a way that actually makes it useful or beneficial, or the way you can be able to grow from it.
Right.
And shoot, that's a personal responsibility.
Absolutely.
Like, that's a genuine personal responsibility, so much so to where the individuals who receiving or consuming have to be able to decide, like, hey, how can this actually serve me? And I don't think that that's a common thought. Like, that's not a common way of thinking, as to see, like, how can I take this message or whatever it is that I saw here and make it useful or valuable for me in my life and whatever my goals and aspirations are. And I don't think that there's really a typical way of thinking or even seeing the world.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like, what's kind of like mind blowing about that is people taking on negative things as their own. Like, why would you want to take on that? Why would you want to take on negative relationship advice? Like, so what if something negative happened to somebody else? Like, you don't have to take that on as, you know, as your life experience. You know what I'm saying? Like, no matter what it is. And I think, like, I'm glad that's something we were totally against. Like, my parents are divorced, you know, your dad wasn't around. Like, is certain things that were negative in our life, we were like, no, that will not be us.
Right.
Period. Like, I'm trying to avoid that as much as possible. People, like something you were talking about earlier, like people who don't have like savings in their account, we make sure we have savings. People don't have budgets, we make sure we have budgets. Like, certain things that that are negative, we make sure we're doing the absolute opposite of what that is. You know what I'm saying? Like making sure we're paying attention to our child and her not being out here doing craziness. Like do the opposite of what the negative ish is. But we're living in a society where people are glorifying negative things. People are glorifying the fact that, oh, well, marriages don't work out. Well, that means I'm going to avoid it by anything, like any means necessary. Like, that makes sense to you?
It's because like now people can be so focused on what the average is doing, not realizing that a lot of the times the average is always swayed towards the downside. The average of just about any field of work, of people, or whatever the case may be, usually always leans towards the negative or the downside of whatever that is. It's like the average person is fat or obese or just not in shape in general, unhealthy, right? The average person doesn't have any particular type of savings. The average marriage is probably not the most productive. There's probably some type of strife or disconnect or whatever the case may be. The average parent ain't present in their kids' lives. Like, and people will sit over here and say that just because the average is failing, then I don't want to do XYZ because that's what the average is. Well, why would you want to be average in the first place? Why wouldn't you aim for being above average? I want to have an above average marriage.
Come on.
I want to have an above average relationship with my baby girl or with my child. I want to be above average in my business, my health and fitness, everything that matters to me. So why not focus on being an outlier rather than being the average of the lowest performers? Like, why even focus on that? And people don't understand. It's like, just because that's what statistics say, or that's what the majority of people are doing, most of the time, that's the exact opposite of what you should be doing, like you just mentioned. And people fail to realize, man, but I think what's so difficult is understanding the fact that you have to be willing to go against the grain, and you have to actually decide to start thinking for yourself and realizing that the moment you decide to be above average, you're going to automatically end up facing some level of challenges and difficulties that require you to go against your actual human nature. But that's what makes you better. Deciding that you want to be above average is literally you accepting the idea that I'm going to take on challenges, going towards something meaningful, because the outcome of that thing is going to make me better. It's going to make my marriage better. It's going to make us better as parents. It's going to make me better as a professional, a business owner, everything. But I'm going to face some level of challenges. I'm going to have some type of standards, some type of values. I'm going to have these things as a guiding light to help make me better, knowing that those things will keep me away from everything else that doesn't make me better.
And listen, I'd rather face challenges in the direction of where I want to go instead of the direction that I don't want to go.
Yeah.
And that's just real.
Because like if you choose the latter, then you got to deal with the consequences of that too. And a lot of the times those consequences start so internally to where they literally can destroy you from the inside out. It's like the average marriage for, see them words, man, they starting to mix up. But anyway, the average marriage struggles with communication.
Right.
But it's not just the communication that they struggle with. Yeah. Because once that starts, the problem really starts to bubble up on the inside of the person. It starts to bubble up on the inside of the person because they feel like their needs not getting met. They start to feel like they're not being heard. They start to feel like their opinions don't matter. And they start to create all of these feelings. And then what do? We start to associate meanings behind those feelings. And then now, when we're trying to communicate, or when we notice that something is not there, it manifests itself because now we're going to act on how we feel for the typical person. And now something that could have been diverted or overted, I think is the actual word, now it ends up becoming something that literally could have been avoided had you to just done the thing beforehand. Right. Even if it was uncomfortable, even if you would have to grow through some challenges or some difficulties or whatever the case may be, but at least it would have been in the positive direction of you ultimately becoming better and getting better at communication and whatever the case may be.
Right.
But that's the process. You get better by actually doing the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you want to be above average, it's like realizing that like, hey, it takes some real work.
Yeah.
And you have to actually be able to like see yourself and all of your flaws and the things that may not be as productive, and be willing to work on those things, have some level of standards and values, and realize that you're giving yourself those things in the hopes of becoming more, in the hopes and the desires of being more, and doing that for a reason.
Yeah.
And knowing that you're going to look different to most people.
Yeah. And
but that's
okay.
the trade-off.
And that's okay.
It is. It's completely okay.
Yeah.
Like, why you fighting to be
average,
normal?
Yeah.
Like, and normal is losing.
Mm-hmm.
Because most normal, average, typical, everyday people are suffering. And suffering, loss, don't know what's going on, and just dealing with the collateral damage of all of what that is.
Yeah.
And that's why it takes so much effort to be intentional.
Right.
Because it's not easy. Yeah. But, yeah, Boop, you hit it right on the head.
Thank you. I was trying to say words and stuff.
You be trying to say words.
I be trying to say words.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Why do you think so many people today conform to that? Conform to being what everybody else is telling them that they should be.
Because I think it's just the easy route, and I think like you said, a lot of people don't even know what they really want.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, they're consuming all of this, social media and all of that stuff. They don't really know what they want. They haven't really sat down with themselves and figured out what they want for their lives. So it's easy to be manipulated by things you're consuming all the time, especially when the average person's on their phone all damn day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I just think it's just easy to just be like, you know what? I'm gonna just do it this way. Everybody else is doing it this way.
Mm-hmm.
And then it gets lonely when you're intentional about a certain thing. It gets lonely when you decide that you no longer want to drink, or you no longer want to eat junk food, or you no longer want to, you want to go to the gym now. You want to be an intentional parent now. You want to be, intentional in everything. Like, it gets lonely. And that's something we've talked about before, like not having a community of people around us because we're so intentional about certain things. And it's certain standards that we can't be around everybody, and that's okay. And that's something we're okay with living with.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So it's easier to just kind of fold for some people if you're not willing to stand firm in who you want to be in life. You know? Does that make sense? I hope that came out right.
Yeah. And because I know we've said this plenty of times. It's like the more intentional you become,
Mm-hmm.
the more you start to realize other people's lack of intentionality.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, like you said, that crap is lonely.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can put yourself in a position of where now you want to be able to have this phenomenal marriage. You really want to work on it. You want to be more intentional and on purpose about what you and your spouse have.
Mm-hmm.
And then you end up realizing that there's so many other people who don't value that, and who may be in your life that negatively impact what you want to actually build and maintain and have in your marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have to spend less time with those people. You become more intentional as a parent and realize that other parents really don't give a crap about their kids, for real.
Yeah.
And now, when you thought you had some connections with other parents, you can't fool with them as much now because you like, I don't know if I want to actually be around that.
Yeah.
And people do the same thing with jobs and work. They do the same thing, like with health and fitness. It's like the more you get serious about a thing, you start to realize that your seriousness in that area is not common.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even though there might be a lot of other people doing it,
mm-hmm.
that does not mean that other people are taking it seriously.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I would challenge Mugs to do this. Like, go to the gym. Go to the gym. You ain't doing nothing crazy. Just stand on the treadmill and just walk. Mm-hmm. And just look around the gym. Mm-hmm. I promise you, in seconds, you can be able to look around the gym and tell exactly who is in there intentional putting in work, and other people who are in there just taking up space, casually, just doing whatever. You can start to segment the people who really work out, like who doing this thing with a purpose, the other people who in there who might just be trying to get some movement in for the day or whatever. And it's not to say that any of those particular things are wrong. Like, let's get that clear.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not to say, because shoot, I got a lot of days where I'm just in there just to be in there. Literally. You know
For
what
the
I mean?
environment.
For the environment. And because it's like, well, I could come in here and half-ass it, and that's still better than doing nothing.
Facts.
So, like, don't get it confused, because you don't know what the intent is behind the person. And their intent may be different from your intent. And some of those things changes by the day. But what I'm saying is, as an overall frame, you can look and put people in buckets very easily. Very easily. And so it's the same thing as like when you step back and look at your life and start to think about the people in your life. Like, if I think about this friend, what do I know for a fact they take extremely seriously? What they're extremely intentional about? Like, do I know what that is for that person?
I was just going to say, a lot of people probably don't even know what their friends actually value.
Yeah, I mean, and really value.
Yeah, really value. In
Really
real life.
value.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't actually live what they believe their values are.
Yes.
So
And understanding what it is like, because when you have a certain value, that dictates your actions.
Absolutely.
That dictates your standards.
Yes.
That dictates what you will and will not tolerate. Like, so when we say not what you like a lot,
yeah,
like something you live by, like you not finna come over here and address this particular thing a certain way.
Right.
What their real values are. And do you know what that line looks like for them?
Yeah.
And so a lot of people can't pinpoint that in their friends, families, all types of stuff or whatever. But at the same time, just like when you know in yourself, when you have certain values and standards and things like that, like you said, man, it gets really, really difficult. And that's when it gets more important to start finding what I would call like segmented tribes. People to where you share values in certain areas and you go to this particular tribe for this thing. And that might only be one thing. It might be, hey, I go, for my health and fitness, I take that real serious. I go to this gym because this community, this CrossFit or small gym or functional fitness gym. Over here, we all for real about this thing over here. All right now, but that's just fitness. When it come to parenting or when it come to business, I got a whole nother tribe, community, environment of people who take that part of life serious, and I go over there for that. And realizing where people sit in certain buckets, and realizing that the more intentional you become in your own life, you got to start finding your tribes to be able to fuel that. Because otherwise, like you said, it just gets
lonely.
It gets very lonely. But it also makes you better in a whole lot of ways too. And it doesn't have to be lonely.
Yeah.
But it can be initially when you're finding your way through it.
Absolutely, baby.
That was a lot on that.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. I was trying to think of what else we were talking about. But then I think this conversation pretty much wrapped it all up.
I think we got it, Boot.
Yeah.
I think we got it. Yeah, and just before we wrap that up, it's just realizing, man, that thinking requires some real work.
It does.
Like in deciding who you genuinely want to be and being that person, like for real, it requires some real work. Knowing what you want to stand for, having a sense of morality and standards and values, it requires some real work. And I know we talk about being intentional a lot, but the real nature of that is just seeing that the world we are living in right now, a large amount of people are trying to convince us that it's okay to not stand for anything. And that's unfortunate.
Right.
And we've gotten to a point where people actually have the desire to not care. And they look at people, be it celebrities or influencers or whatever the case may be, and they admire their not caring. Like, oh, they just themselves and they just do whatever, and I wish I could be like that and not care what people think about me. But what they really saying is, I wish I didn't have a sense of morality. I wish I didn't feel shame and guilt about some of this other stuff. I wish I didn't care, not realizing that some of those things you care about are your boundaries trying to keep you centered in being an actual decent person. Mm-hmm. And that you feeling shame and guilt sometimes is not always a bad thing. It's saying that, hey, this is wrong. I shouldn't be doing it. Mm-hmm. And it's trying to be your guiding light, but it's like you have people today that aspire to not feel that. Mm-hmm. It's like your soul trying to tell you that this is a line you shouldn't cross.
Right.
And people aspire to not have that.
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
It's very ridiculous. And then they end up feeling bad about themselves over time. And then they start having mental health issues. And then worst case scenario, it ends badly.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
Unalive themselves. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because you've went against what your inner, what your instinct is telling you about yourself. You're feeling guilt and you're feeling shame. You're feeling bad about this thing for a reason, because it's something in you telling you that you shouldn't be doing this thing. And you're going against what your intuition is telling you. Mm-hmm. And now you no longer trust yourself to make the right decisions for yourself, because you're going against what you're supposed to be doing.
You don't trust yourself. You don't love yourself.
Right.
You don't know who the heck you are.
Right.
And like now you're so far away from who you are. You're so disconnected, so disassociated. What happens? Addiction slide in, all type of, like you said, mental health issues slide in. All of these things creep in to take over that space because you've decided to shut out the voice of you, the voice of reason that's naturally inside of you, that was actually trying to get you to realize, like, hey, we treading in some bad ground over here. Like we need to get away from that. Like, but you decided to shut that thing up so much so to the point where now you've lost yourself and you don't know how to find your way back.
Yeah.
And that's the unfortunate thing that people realize, like, man, there's collateral damage that comes with not caring.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other part of that is realizing that it's actually a very good thing to have things that you care about and to have standards, even though they do invite some level of difficulty. And not caring is anything that, in my opinion, that anybody should aim for when it comes to going against something that literally conflicts your soul. It's conflicting with who you are on the inside. And I don't know, man, like a lot of people are dealing with that these days, and it's beyond unfortunate.
Yeah.
Beyond unfortunate. But, that's why we have our show. That's why we have, the thoughts and the perspectives that we share to just show that, actually caring about something is dope.
Yeah.
Having a meaningful marriage is dope. All of those things, caring is actually dope.
I was like, from what you were saying, I was thinking about, you were talking about, people saying, oh, she's so authentic or he's so authentic. I want to be like that. It's like, being authentic is listening to yourself. It is listening to why you feel guilt. It's listening to why you feel shame or why you feel bad, why you feel happy or why you think these thoughts. Like, being authentic is listening to yourself and processing the information that yourself is telling you about whatever the situation is. That's authenticity.
And trust is a huge part of that.
Yeah.
Like, actually having values and being able to trust yourself is a very high form of authenticity.
Absolutely.
Because you're being exactly who you know you are and not denying yourself that, trying to be something else that you're not. And so, and again, a lot of people confuse authenticity with a lack of morality, standards, and values. And that's not what that is, because you literally have to go against so much of yourself, and again, that's why it's important for us to continue to share these messages and to bring some of these things to light, because if the people don't know, if somebody's not talking about it, then those voices that sit there and that project those messages can only get louder, and somebody got to be different.
Yeah.
somebody got to be different. Somebody got to say, this is freaking stupid.
This is some boo.
This is dumb. This is a dumb way of thinking. And I want to protect y'all
and then,
from the dumbness.
Yeah. And then like something we were talking about earlier is like, we think about our baby girl and it's like all of this nonsense is out there.
Mm-hmm.
Our baby girl, she has social media. Yeah, we go through her stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but she still has access to the world.
Yeah.
And it's like, nah, bruh. Like somebody got to be out here going against this. And who else better than her parents?
Yeah.
Who else better?
And at least people really don't think, man, that their kids people don't know how unprotected their kids really are when it comes to the world socially.
Yeah.
And they think that, just because you keep a phone away from them, all of that other crap, that means something. Bro, it don't. Especially if you got kids that's going to school, they sharing phones. Like I was telling somebody earlier, I was like, bro, like kids these days be having 3, 4, 5 spam accounts. And it's like a normal thing.
And listen, something like even my baby girl, she knows the passcodes to all her friends' phones. Like they know each other's passcodes. So they be in each other's phones.
Yeah.
So it don't matter if they have a phone or not. They know they friend has a phone and they can look in the phone and look you up.
Yes.
They don't got to look at your account through their phone.
Seriously.
They really looking at your stuff and seeing who their parents really are.
Yes. and then it's like people like, oh, that's why I keep all my stuff private and all this other crap or whatever. And it's like, bro, okay, that's cool. I got it or whatever. But at the same time, it's like, wouldn't it be dope for them to be able to look you up and be able to learn something from their parents, to see what they stand for, to see what their values are, and to see that in the public eye, they talk that same stuff that they teaching you about, see you walking about it, seeing you being somebody influential, seeing you do something to make an impact. And then hopefully in you doing that, you got a flood of comments of other people who amen in what you're saying. So, and it might seem stupid, but this is the world we in today. Yeah. And so it's like, you cannot care. You can, like, you don't have to, but assuming that it might make more of an impact than you might think, it probably won't be a bad call to make sure that how you're showing up in that particular era matches the same way you show up at home, if not better, if they not seeing you growing or becoming more, whatever the case may be. But just realize, ain't no running away from it. There is no running away from it. And people will wonder why their kids are disrespectful and all this other crap or whatever, because they see two different people.
Because they know you.
Yeah, and they know you more than you think they think you do. Like, oh yeah, that freaking weird account that looked like somebody, whatever. And you thought you was like, I'm gonna just go ahead, accept it or whatever. Boss, that was your kid. You ain't even know. And that sounds weird, but
no, it's not weird. No, it's not weird at all. Because we know our teenager be letting us know what it is.
Give us all the game. Kids be out here following and watching like, she just told me not to do that. But here she go doing that same stuff.
That voice, though.
Yeah. But anyway, that's how it is, though.
No, it is. It is.
And it's mind blowing. Like, I guess it's not really that crazy if you think about it. But when it touches home or when it becomes real, when it happens to you, it gives it a whole nother level of perspective. And that's why knowing what you stand for, having those values, communicating, becoming better, being more intentional, all that stuff. Yeah, it takes effort, but it's so important because, again, if you're not intentional about who you're becoming, the things that you allow into you, your life, your marriage, all of those particular things, then you got to deal with the consequences of what happens when you don't do something, when you don't say something, when you're not controlling your environment and being intentional about who you're becoming. You don't have to, but be prepared to deal with the consequences of whatever comes behind that. And that just is what it is.
That's it.
So you could do something about it proactively or you could deal with the consequences.
Yeah.
If you guys have enjoyed this episode, please do, man, like, comment, and subscribe. Follow us on whatever your favorite podcasting platform is, YouTube, Instagram, all the good stuff, man. we've enjoyed this. I've enjoyed this, baby.
This was a good conversation.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. My name is John Trump, family. This is my beautiful queen.
Adoria.
We are one dope couple. And until next time, peace and love.